Good morning from Fenchurch Street. It's just gone 7 AM. It's the first day of service for public operated trains out of Fenchurch Street along the Essex Thameside route. I thought that was a good excuse to go and ride on all of the route. Let's go. I know that when the first route was brought under public ownership, which is South Western Railway, there was quite a big song and dance at the station. Here, there is not so much. They've even got c2c bunting still, even though, well, I guess the brand still exists for now, because it's never simple, is it? Having said that about the station, they have stripped all of the external branding from this train. It's got a kind of few stickers on it. Ow. Walks into a... I'm going to call this an ear. That's an ear. Right, now technically this is not the very first service under nationalised operation. It's the second, but it's the first one out of Fenchurch Street. Because I'll be frank, I couldn't be bothered to go to Shoeburyness for 5:40 AM, given there's no reasonable way to get there that isn't by road or staying there overnight, and it's not that deep. Oh, and by the way, Riku's here. Oh, and by the way, Riku's there. Now, I reckon today I'm going to basically be going up and down the line a bit, checking out some of the sights to see on the route, but I'm going to exclude London from this. We don't need to do that today. So basically, if you imagine a line past Upminster and past Grays, anything east of that, we'll check out. It's worth noting that, like SWR before it, the c2c brand isn't about to disappear overnight. It's only this train that has had its exterior stickered over to say Great British Railways. They're basically waiting to reach a kind of critical mass of taking over franchises, at which point the full brand will be introduced. What I don't know is when that critical mass will be. Do they have to do them all? Are they just going to do a portion? I believe there's a sort of organisation in waiting called Shadow Great British Railway, which I think just putting shadow in front of anything makes it sound cooler, so maybe we should keep that. What I also don't know is if these routes that were formerly franchises will keep or have their own names underneath the Great British Railway brand. Technically the route is called Essex Thameside at the moment, but it's a little bit dry, that name. So let's maybe come up with some alternatives. I'll start the ball rolling with Shubbury Ness, Shoe Church, Bakerlooifying it, basically. Now, I'm sure nobody's going to get too upset if I say that the collection of stations here isn't the most attractive in the land, but I did quite like that little pump thing at Southend Central. So here we are at Shubbury Ness, and that, I think, makes me the very first person to take a renationalised service all the way from Fenchurch Street to Shubbury Ness. I'm very proud of this achievement. I will remember it for days to come. The passenger tracks may end at Shubbury Ness, but there are more tracks here that keep on going towards the coastline, and that's for a reason that is quite tied up in the recent history of this place. So this is ostensibly the mouth of the River Thames, which I suppose makes this a sequel video to my video about the Thames branches, sort of. I mean, it's a lot bigger here, and you could probably make a case that this is actually just the sea. Over that way we've got Kent, this here is Essex. We're right on the boundary, obviously, of the city of Southend-on-Sea. But there's more to see, and we'll go this way a little bit to explain why there is a railway line coming past the station. There's a cool little artwork here based on a sound mirror, and I have no idea whether it's going to pick up on this, but it is weird how dead that sound is. It's all just reflecting back at me. It's like anti-echo. Bap, bap. So as well as being a great place to recharge your batteries, this is also a place to reload your batteries. And by batteries I here mean artillery, and by you I mean the military. Because basically just behind me here, there's a big old fence, and I can't go any further because it's all a military installation. Shubbury Ness, for the past couple of centuries or so, has been a place to basically test shooting things, test armaments. In fact, if you keep going up the coast that way, you'll reach Foulness Island. I mean, if you follow me, you know of and enjoy the works of Tom Scott, and he made a video about the Broomway, which is possibly the most dangerous public footpath in the country. I'm not going to do that because I don't fancy drowning and or getting arrested. I say and or, it'd actually be quite impressive to do both. Now, they're very hard to see, but out there in the Thames estuary are some Maunsell forts, I think I'm pronouncing that decently. They're sea forts, just big old forts on stilts in the sea that were built in the Second World War to protect the Thames estuary. But in the 60s they were used for pirate radio stations, so it's always good to recycle. Can't believe I've entirely forgotten to say something along the lines of, I've gone to see the sea with c2c. Pretty odd that the armed forces seem to still run their trains as steam locomotives, but whatever works. Back on the train coming out of Shoeburyness now. So a little bit more about the renationalisation. Basically, as each of the existing franchises comes up to the end of its contract, it just passes into the public hands. So we had South Western Railway, this is now the second one. A bunch of the operating companies were already public run anyway, but the next one coming up will be Greater Anglia, so the services out of Liverpool Street up towards Norwich, other places, which presents a little bit of a dilemma, maybe one that I'm just making up here, but Department for Transport, I know you're watching. You're about to take over a service called Greater Anglia and you're going to replace it with Great British Railways. Now, I did A-level English. I know how superlatives work. You're replacing greater with just great. I think we're going to need to rethink this and call everything Greatest British Railways. I'll take a 10% cut, thank you very much. Time to make my first ever visit to Southend on Sea, which I often forget is a city, but it is. To be fair, when I think of Southend, I do think of fish that can travel the multiverse. There's some confusing wayfinding here. National League defences are going to be terrified. I mean, I don't know how good he is at shooting, but it's pretty terrifying having a massively oversized penguin sort of haring towards you. Do penguins hare? I feel like I'm crossing species a bit. And I don't want to be a cinema snob, but I think the Odeon has had a little bit of a downgrade since the days of yore. Thought I'd pop by Southend Victoria Station, not because I'm getting a train from there, but just because it's a good place to illustrate that once Greater Anglia, which runs this station, gets subsumed into Great British Railways, essentially it should, in theory, be simpler to get a ticket from Southend to London or wherever that encompasses kind of both stations. So like if there's disruption with one of the routes, you could take the other one. It's all going to be the same dudes, gender neutral dudes running stuff, you know? But also, like, I can't say with any sort of conviction because I'm not the DFT. Unless... Very embarrassing misprint from Caddy's, the crazy golf place there. That is... Oof, we're miles from Clacton. That's a triple bogey sort of error. Should have definitely mentioned as well that Southend Central and all the way to Shubbury Ness, in the first half, or period of the first half of the 20th century, the district line came all the way out here on its summer holidays, I guess. Yeah, this is a former London Underground station. Kinda. Now, it should come as little surprise that the place to go in Southend is the on-sea bit. You've got the longest pier in the world, 1.33 miles long. And whilst I'm here waiting for the pier to open, this is a nice touch. These benches have got upturned anchors as their armrests. And if you're gonna make the longest pier in the world, you're gonna need a way to get up and down it. So good job, they built a little railway. So why did Southend need such a long pier? Well, the answer is that we're in the Thames estuary. It's mudflats underneath here, which means the water isn't that deep, and at low tide it can recede quite a way out from the shore. That means that boats can't dock at Southend proper, so you need to build something long to reach where the water's deep enough. So there's an actual genuine reason. It wasn't just a pier measuring contest. Well, that was fun. It takes about 10 minutes to come out here, and then it'll presumably sit here for about 10 minutes before heading back and turning around. It also feels like, we're very much not, but it feels like we're now closer to Kent than to Southgate. Southgate? Gareth? Sir? The bars and arrows does beg the question, is this going to be nationalised as well? Is this going to be part of Great British Railways? I mean, you got Ryde Pierhead on the Isle of Wight, that's a station on a pier. Why not this one? Set up a through ticket from Fenchurch Street to Southend Pierhead, or whatever you want to call it. This is where you come, this is where you want to be. Well, what's that there then? I feel like you could probably stitch, I don't know, 4 or 5 of these together, and then you'd actually solve the whole crossing the lower Thames thing. What do you mean there's boats? And there's a lifeboat station too. Anyway, I am walking back now. I want to see if I can get there before the train gets back here and back there, because otherwise I've just wasted my energy. Just past halfway along, and there's this little kind of passing loop here, which I imagine must get used in the busy summertime to allow for doubling up the service. Don't know if they're doing that now, but they could. 10 minutes out there on the train, and it took maybe 20 minutes to walk back. And underneath the trains at the shoreside, the pier's got a little museum as well. And I've just been given some coins to play on the old fairground games. So let's see how high a score I can get. And that is a bad start. That's a bad start. Oh, no, that's out. 300. Okay, 300 again. No. That is bad. That was awful. It's very hard to gauge, but that was a win. I'll get my money back. Not my money. Fishing. Fish and chips. Ice cream balls. Fish and chips. 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 Burgers. Fish and chips. Fish and chips. There's a lot of fish and chips. Who'd have thought it? Despite the weather, that was lovely on the pier. There is one more place in Southend that I want to visit before I head back to the train, and that is another sort of train, I guess. So this is the Southend Cliff Lift, which, if I believe a sign I saw in the city centre, the shortest funicular railway in the UK. And it operates a bit like a lift. There's a button. You just push a button down here, which I've already pressed. I'm not going to press it again. And then hopefully, here it comes. The lift comes down to greet you. This is exciting. It seems to operate at about 0.4 miles an hour or something, but, you know, when in town. This place loves a good mural. Or 5. Next up of the journey, leigh-on-sea. Because if you want mud flats, well, you're getting mud flats. You didn't ask for mud flats, did you? But you're getting mud flats. Oh, that's wet. Ugh. Blech. So for no real reason whatsoever, I've come out here to Two Tree Island near leigh-on-sea, which actually I'm going to report to the Advertising Standards Authority. Because, look, 1, 2, 3. I mean, there's more than 2 trees here. Mate, you're nicked. So this island was all kind of reclaimed land. And now it's a nature reserve, which is a sort of shelter for birds in the winter. Lots of wildfowl and seabirds. Places like this, they're not beautiful in the way that a mountain is beautiful, or a glacier, or a forest or something. But there's beauty here all the same, but it's a more kind of unsettling beauty. A sort of place of folk tales, and wetlands are special, you know, we gotta protect them. And the other cool thing is about this place, you can see a ruined castle on a hill in the distance, Hadley Castle, which was built in the 13th century for all your kind of various usual castle reasons. But because all of the land around here is soft and marshy, basically the castle suffered from a lot of subsidence. That's a shame. Could use it for castling things. If you're a regular commuter at leigh-on-sea and you have to go up all those steps every day, you must have calves of steel. I have, and probably will continue, to rag on c2c stations for their aesthetic qualities, but what I will say is that they've got plenty of toilets, plenty of water fountains. I mean, we don't need to go into detail, but the water cycle is accounted for. And after the nature reserve of Two Tree Island, a very different sort of environment here at Tilbury Town. So Tilbury is probably most famous for 2 things that end in "ort." Tilbury Port, of which there's some of this behind me, and Tilbury Fort, which I'm walking to on, admittedly, a rather unglamorous route. What's very odd is this big, quite grand cruise terminal behind me, which is decked out in all these flowers and there's flags flying, but nobody's home. I guess you don't get that many cruises on a Sunday. But what's more interesting about this spot is that this is where the Empire Windrush landed in 1948. Now, I'm not going to do justice to the wave of migration from the West Indies that the Empire Windrush brought, but it is fair to say that that generation, the Windrush generation, had a pretty substantial impact on the last round of nationalised rail in Britain. And public transport in general was one of the main industries that generation ended up working in. It's a bit of a historic spot, really. It's kind of crazy how much less wide the Thames is here. I mean, obviously that's how estuaries work, but just over there, that is the rather substantial town of Gravesend in Kent. And there used to be a passenger ferry from this port just over the river to get you between the two towns. That ended last year. I don't really know what the status of it is, to be honest, but as of now, to get just over there, where I can hear traffic, 35-minute drive. There's no other way downstream of here to cross the Thames as a regular person who doesn't just have a boat or a helicopter lying around. What I'm really here to see, though, is just behind me, Tilbury Fort, built by the Tudors to protect London and the Thames from, you know, armadas and navies coming up the old Thames and attacking and all that. It goes without saying, really, that we've got to keep the good people of Gravesend on their toes.
This place is nuts.
Dead silent, just passageways, darkness. A lot of rooms where they would have stored big things that go boom. Now, I'm not going to give you the full history of Tilbury Fort, in large part because I think English Heritage would appreciate your custom. Well, I don't think I've exhausted all of the interesting things out on the Thames estuary, but I've certainly exhausted myself. So I think now's a good time to go home on this publicly owned train service. Now, I've actually got some plans for some more of these little outings after you were very kind about the Thames branches one, and some of them might be a bit more further flung. So keep an eye out for more of that in the weeks and months to come. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more of this in your feed. C2c,